Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back. It's time for another episode of Guess What? Eddie G's Comic Culture. Once again, I am your host, the one and only Eddie G, here bringing it to you live and in full effect, as I always do. I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in once again, and if it's your first time in the show, welcome. This show is basically centered around all things comic book related, and that goes as far as movies, even the music and video games as well. This is a forum, so we basically just here chatting it up, shooting the shit, discussing all things as far as news and entertainment as well. And thank you guys. Out sending out my shout outs first and foremost. Got it. The show's still sponsored by the great folks over at Black Apparel, so make sure you swing over to their website at www.blackapparelblk.com. They have some great merchandise coming out for the winter, for Christmas actually. If you guys are still doing some shopping and you're looking for some last minute gifts, or if you're just looking for gifts altogether, they got some pretty dope stuff for you guys to check out. So make sure you stop over on their website. Sending a special shout out to Nerdy Blurb TV. Also make sure you go on there. They have a wonderful YouTube channel which I managed to surf through today. Wonderful content, mind you guys, and also just the same as mine's. Very comic book oriented films, movies, games, music, anything you could possibly think of. That they got it going on that channel. So make sure you hop on over to their page and check them out. Subscribe, like I did. There's some great people. Also, Channel 3 Productions, my boy Pablo out of New York. And, much love, brother. Let's get this show on the road. As I was saying, as I promised in earlier episodes, I was actually going to get back to doing more shows revolving around reviews for comics. And I figured today would be a perfect exception. I might as well just start today. Screw that. I did some reading. I did some catching up on the Brian Michael Bendis run on Superman so far. The art is amazing. That's first and foremost. The wonderfully talented Ivan Reis. If you haven't checked his work out beforehand, he's done some great stuff for DC. I want you guys, make sure Google him. The guy's a legend as far as his penciling game is concerned. One of my most, it's one of my favorite illustrators right about now in the DC universe. But he's definitely off the charts when it comes to presenting some great panoramic views, and this is no exception with a book like Superman. This one in particular, I wanted to discuss the second issue, of course, The Phantom Zone. That's right. Now, apparently, it seems that if you guys haven't read the issues, by the way, I will be discussing some spoilers, so just a heads up for you guys. But there's a lot of stuff going on as a major storyline. It starts off with a bang. It's a very big, it's a blockbuster kind of deal going on in this series. And one thing I wanted to go ahead, and the main reason why I wanted to actually really surface on something, I don't want to give too much away. I want to I'm gonna have some slight spoilers here and there. I'm trying not to give too much away for you guys. But the one thing that I had to the one thing I really wanted you guys to focus on is that there's something in this book that hasn't been appeared. There's a character in this book that hasn't appeared for quite some time. As a matter of fact, let me just hit you off with a question like this. What does this book and the year 1987 have in common? This particular issue right here. Well, you'll find it's funny that you're wondering and scratching your heads right about now exactly why. So, shit. Well, when you guys see the picture, though, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, if I could just pan on this right here, let me try to block this other page out for you guys, but this is horrible shit. But if you could see who this is, if you could recognize it, that's right. That's him, the one and only Nuclear Man. Now, the reason why I say this has what it has in common with 1987 is because Superman 4: The Quest for Peace was actually released that year, and that's when this character made his debut. If you guys know the history of Superman 4, it's kind of interesting. But nonetheless, it's still in one of the annals, considerably regarded by quite a few people. I think actually comicbookresources.com listed it as one of the worst comic book movies of all time. It's one of those it's so bad it's good movies, and it's it's cool, but at the same time, it's kind of heartbreaking because if you know the history behind it and Christopher Reeve's intention with the film, like it really just it really wasn't the best. It really wasn't the best outing for him at the time to play the character like for a character like Superman. So the fact that this surprise actually showed up out of nowhere is basically out of this world. But so is the issue in itself. I mean, the basic premise is the Earth is trapped in the Phantom Zone. And Superman, of course, is scrambling, trying to get the hell out of there, trying to get it out of the Phantom Zone before, the time runs out. And plus, there is the threat of a war coming to the planet Earth. And considerably so, with all the villains and pretty much with all the rogue gallery that he's got locked up in there. They're pretty much looking to just square some off. But it's a wonderfully, as you've seen, the art is just absolutely amazing. Ivan Reis really does his thing. An awesome penciler, awesome. This guy's he's up there, bro. And honestly, I love Jim Lee. Jim Lee to me is one of my, Jim Lee, Greg Capullo, Mark Bagley, and Mark Bagley's who always done, a lot of work for Marvel mainly. But, these are the artists that I really, really like cherish as far as that's concerned. And Ivan Reis has really become one of those. And this is exactly what this issue is. It's a blockbuster, big screen, panoramic, story. However, and there are some some beefs that I have here. For the most part, it's a pretty good story. It plays pretty well. However, there are some scenes, there are some panels where it kind of just dives into just becoming some silliness, absolute silliness. And I don't understand where exactly Brian actually got the idea to have these characters written in that sort of manner, but it was a little, I understand they wanted to make the story fun, but it was a little awkward. And in some scenes, the humor just didn't stick. So, with that being said, it was kind of it kind of has that Spider-Man type of humor. And depending on who's writing Superman, depending on who's writing the character in general, if they can, that kind of material can mesh with, depending or not, whether or not it meshes well with the characters, the story, it really is it's kind of an interesting thing. I couldn't tell you, I'm trying not to, just expose everything that's going on in the issues. I already showed you guys enough or told you enough already. But, as I said before, the humor is kind of oddly placed with certain characters. You'll see. There's in particularly a scene with Batman that was just a little too like that. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? But nonetheless, it was still a pretty solid issue so far. I can see why a few people are kind of put off by it because the dialogue is, like I said, it's a little. Superman is still Superman. He's not he's definitely not back in. It's not New 52 Superman. It's definitely, let's just get that out there. So if you're looking for that kind of seriousness when it comes to Kal-El, and especially now, it's not gonna happen. But it's like I'm glad they're taking a different direction. However, they just they kind of pulled the trigger a little too fast on a few scenes, which was a little too much for me. But as I said before, it's a pretty solid issue. It's a great spectacle. If buy it for the work because there's some great panoramics in this series. I'm not even gonna front with you guys. No bullshit. Ivan does his thing, and that's the one reason why I highly recommend the book. The writing, not so much. But it was really a treat to see a callback to that. Especially coming up. Superman 4 was one of my most least. To me it was Superman 1, Superman 2, Superman 4, and then of course at the bottom is Superman 3. But that's another story. But all in all, I definitely give it a good 3 stars all the way through. A good hard 3 stars for the book. So definitely pick it up. If you guys have the chance, or if you're curious enough to check it out, go ahead and scope it. One thing I also wanted to discuss is that it looks like Legendary Studios is taking interest in the Toxic Avenger. Yes, the Toxic Avenger, and they're looking to make it as a big budget feature. Now, with that being said, I don't know how far they're going to go with that. In all honesty, it sounds like a pretty bad idea. The original is just, the original just prides itself on being it prides itself on being B-movie material. You know, it was never really a, it was never a film to be taken seriously, and it really explored like the mad and macabre. It was kind of like Mad Magazine on superheroes. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't. So that's what made it such a good film, and what made it part of its charm. You know, it's just, it's one of, like I said, it's a guilty pleasure kind of deal. The same thing as Flash Gordon and all that. But to make it like a big budget feature for today's Hollywood films really it doesn't sit well with me. Like, who gives a crap? You know, because part of the charm is pretty much like, you know, you can't CGI everything, and sometimes CGI doesn't really work well. You know, like I said, I was born in '81. Born 1981, so all of the movies that I know, as far as like, you know, as far as fantasy features, science fiction films, and all of that stuff, they really dealt with a lot of practical effects. Nowadays, it's just all CGI, computer generated imagery, and all that other nonsense. And it's not bad. Thank God we have CGI, because otherwise it would be almost impossible to have what we have for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or even for Warner Brothers films, like, you know, the DC Cinematic Universe, or Worlds of DC, as they like to call their cinematic universe. But I don't see how that's actually going to work. Who knows? You know, this is pretty much in the beginning stages so far. So nothing's pretty much set in stone. I don't even think they got a script written yet for that. But you know, like, it's, you know, like I said, if you guys want to check it out, they don't have it on Prime. I know they do have the animated series on Prime, the Toxic Crusaders, which was another, I don't know, creature features was always my thing, and I always loved their action figures, and, you know, plus on top of that, they were made by the same, you know, toy company as the ones that made the Ninja Turtles back in the days, you know. So, but it was always a fun show. It was pretty hilarious for what it was worth, you know. But yeah, I don't know how that's gonna come out. You know, like I said, but it's still beginning stages. They don't have nothing solid as of yet. I don't even think they even have a script. But yeah, I'm just gonna, like, you know, close this episode out. I wanted to make this a pretty brief one, since I wanted to have that review. I wanted especially to discuss that Superman issue with you guys. But before I go, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in and showing out, listening to me talk my trash as usual. If you guys have any questions or comments, you already know. If you want to discuss anything, have any contrasting opinions against mine, you know, if you feel differently about the issues, how are you liking the Superman run if you're reading it? And you know, let's get it going. Let's get this conversation popping. So hit that subscribe button, hit that like, and I'll see you guys next time around, man. All right. I'll keep you posted for some next videos. Stay tuned. Be safe. Enjoy.